You're listening to The Phillip Jordan Show.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. I am Phillip Jordan, in studio host and producer. Nothing was football on 96.9, the legend and Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. Got a fun show playing for you guys this week. I'm going to be joined by NFL draft analyst John Vogel. We'll be talking about the Senior Bowl, what all the Johns see, who stood out. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks, especially Jackson Dart, and also some other SEC-related players, Jarquez Hunter, Jalen Milroe. We'll knock it all around and some other interesting stuff. But John, and then I got some interesting stuff to talk about happening over the weekend. Some coach news involving some Southeast and just national stuff. Look back at some SEC basketball, and we don't do this often, but we'll jump into the NBA for a few minutes as well. So a lot of fun stuff here on this edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. You check out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are just a straight-up hater. You can check out the show over at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications. And if you leave a comment on a video, I'll read those as well. You can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Show's also over at Wiregrass Daily News as well. Follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. Everybody, as promised on the top, I am joined by NFL draft analyst, one of my favorite guys to talk to about all things NFL draft, college players, pro players, whatever football players we got, John Vogel. And John, I appreciate you making the time to come on the show, and even a busy man with everything going on, but I appreciate taking time to talk about some of these players you saw at the Senior Bowl last week.
Always, man. Always for you.
So, and then actually, I saw you put this out on X today, recording this on Monday, your draft guide. So just kind of, I wanted to lead with that. Tell the folks out there about your draft guide, what they can find in it, and where they can get it.
Yeah, you get it, the link that's posted on my X or on draftvogel.com, but it's 1,500 prospects deep, and it's all my work goes into it now. It used to be I had separate things for NFL and for college, but you really need the NFL stuff too when you're going into the draft season, because you got to understand who's drafting and why they're drafting that position. So it's got full NFL team breakdowns. It's got breakdowns of the schools and who's coming out in the draft, and full on reports. All my notes, everything that I'm doing when I'm watching a game goes in there, and so you can usually see my work right there, like in real time. It's a OneNote document, so it updates in real time, and it's available. I'll have the next one probably dropping at the beginning of June, and that'll be available for the entire year, so you can use it as a football guide in general.
All right, so everybody go check it out, follow, and I'll post a link down in the description of the podcast and on all that other stuff, so people want to go check that out. So the week in Mobile, which always, I tell people all the time, they said, what sticks out with the game? I'm like, really, the game is probably the least. It's important, but one of the more least important is the practices, right? What's going on with there. Just overall, for people out there maybe have gone to the Senior Bowl as fans, but haven't participated in it as during the week with practices either. So I know as a fan you can go to practices, but also as someone covering the event, what's that whole week like there down in Mobile?
Well, it's my favorite week of the year because you never know who you're going to meet and you never know what you're going to hear. So that right there makes it intriguing the entire week. For us, when we go down there, it's a good time to catch up, with friends and the media and stuff. But what you're really looking for is during the practices, who kind of sticks out. A lot of times there's the top guys don't play in the game on Saturday. So you watch them in practice, you get a chance to see their prep, how they sort of attack certain situations. And so there's a lot of good to take away from it, but it's those 3 days of practice is really just taking a good time to study. For some of us, it's a great time to network and kind of expand on who we already know. A lot of people, want to get in this business and they want to do this type of work. And that's one of the best places to start meeting people that are going to help you along the way. Um, Friday is the teams, the players and everybody, the teams are off. That's their family day. You got the Mardi Gras parade, and then Saturday's the game. So it's it's a good time. I like it because it's really you don't find many situations where you can sit with your friends and you can chill and network with new people and have a football practice going on at the same time.
Yeah, and just talking about to touch on the game, I feel like we'll talk more about what we saw from the practice or what you saw from the practice stuff. But still, it was a cool story with Jack Beck catching the touchdown there for the American team, 22-19. Of course, everything the story about obviously with his brother, what happened in New Orleans there, that whole situation. But just a cool story with him to kind of put a cap on that week.
I mean, you couldn't have scripted the ending of the Senior Bowl being any better. 7 seconds to go, which was Jack's brother's number 7. He was wearing number 7 all week for him. All the players had, number 7 stickers on the back of their helmets. So they snapped the ball with 7 seconds to go, and he catches the game-winning touchdown. I think that was the second of the day too. Jack, you can't script that any better, dude. It's so awesome that we were able to kind of witness that happening, and just all that hard work and being able to take some of that grief and turn it into something so productive on the field. You can't help but feel really good for Jack, because you cannot make a movie end like you couldn't even dream of making a movie end like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was amazing. You're right. I mean, that's like storybook movie stuff, and movies can't even get it that good. What kind of prospect is he heading into this whole deal?
Yeah, he's probably a slot receiver type prospect. He's going to be able to play some H back, and he's very physical through contact. Makes catches really well through contact. That's probably his biggest attribute to his game. Um, you know, not the greatest route runner, not the greatest athlete, but because of that physicality, he's going to be able to make some tough catches in tough situations.
Yeah, so we'll see how that works out. We're going to get into the quarterback, so I kind of want to when I ask this question, just ignore that position. But maybe not most impressive player, but most impressive position you saw throughout the week.
Defensive tackle. So many guys popped. I think there were really, I guess, defensive end too. I knew that the battles were going to be in the trenches. That's what I was really excited about going down there for. I thought that, Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M had a really good week. I mean, when you put on a tape and, the first play you see a guy that you're thinking is 290 pounds playing defensive tackle lines up in the wide 9 and covers it, you're like, okay, this is gonna be a lot of fun. And that's what we continued to see down in Mobile. Was very fluid athlete, moves more like he's 260. Not many better, I think. I think he probably solidified himself as a first round pick down there in Mobile. And same thing for Walter Nolan. That guy is an absolute freak of nature. Texas A&M transfer to Ole Miss. Absolutely dominant week. Reminds me a lot of the Lions' old. I can't ever pronounce his first name, so I just call him Sue. He's a little bit smaller than Sue was, but he's got that same intensity and that same drive and attack. Probably solidified himself as a top 10, top 15 pick.
Yeah, I remember Dominican Sue. His battles with Aaron Rodgers were always always legendary.
Without the stomping on the face mask. I think that's what you're getting with Walter Nolan. Yeah.
That's good. That's good for everybody involved. You're not going to get that part of it.
Yeah.
Other quarterbacks, and obviously this overall quarterback class is not like the one we saw last year. I mean, it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and then it's kind of like who's next of the quarterbacks. And it seems like there was kind of like, I guess depends where you would read on Jackson Dart. It seemed like a lot of people believe he did really well for himself. Could be that third quarterback taken, and maybe mixed reviews with some. What was your big takeaways from Jackson Dart over the week?
I thought he had a shaky start to the week, but he kind of settled in. I think you also have to note that when he came into the game, that team got better. They weren't moving the ball offensively. They went down, they got a touchdown. It was a big chunk play that he kind of underthrew, but put his receiver in a position to make a play, and then was able to get it, to punch it in the end zone. He's a gritty runner, and I think that's a part of his game that's a little underrated. I'm not sure how I would feel, because he's going to have some issues with progressions at the next level. That Lane Kiffin offense, they read, certain schemes very differently than anybody else. They draw up a lot of stuff that's designed like no one else does. And you've seen that, with Matt Corral, he's really struggled mentally to adjust, throughout his professional career, even going down to UFL. So you hope that that doesn't happen to Dart. I think he's a little more toolsy, than Matt Corral ever was. But I think he's probably done some good things to help himself this week. He good character as well. Never did I see him not have time for the kids that were hanging out there in Mobile all 3 days of practice, Friday and Saturday. So you know that you're going to get a good character guy that's going to come in there and do the work.
Yeah, I think too with him, but I think sometimes like Kiffin didn't care for it. I know NFL teams won't. It's tough. I mean, there's no doubt how tough he is. I don't think he likes the slide. That's something in the next level he will need to learn and get it out of bounds. Do you see him as the third best quarterback in the draft, or where are you at on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on your scheme. I think personally, I think Milroe is probably the third best quarterback in the class, and I know a lot of Alabama fans probably roll their eyes when I say that, but I think that when they asked him to be Lamar Jackson at Alabama, he was spectacular. You go back to that Georgia game where they really were able to use his legs, the run that he had at the end of the year, the end of Saban's career. When they asked him to do that, he was really good. When they asked him to kind of be Michael Penix Jr. the second half of the year, that's when it all fell apart because he's not that developed as a passer. He's not really into the intermediate type stuff. So the Senior Bowl was kind of a bad setting for him to come down there and show because it's not an offense that he's going to be able to run, or at least not right now. But I think if you're a team and you have a year or 2 years that you can really give him, I think that you let him sit for a year, but you start to really build that offense into something that Todd Monken has done with Lamar Jackson, that type of style of offense, and a lot of power, a lot of speed in the backfield to complement him. I think that would really help him, and you could probably get something out of him. But if we're going to talk West Coast, it's up in the air between Jackson Dart and Kyle McCord out of Syracuse.
Yeah, I was kind of Milroe was my next question for you, so I was kind of interested where he's gonna go with that. Like, I mean, doing the podcast, I'm kind of critical of just the intermediate stuff, and I tell people all the time, like, that's where he does struggle. I mean, when you look at a deep ball, I don't think there's anybody in college football that throws a better deep ball than Jalen Milroe. It's just kind of like the in between stuff. Which, again, like you said, if he lands somewhere where he can develop, get a couple years, and get better that way, then you can get better. But how much trouble would he be in if he's asked to start right away, you think, in the NFL?
Oh, it would be awful. He's not ready, and it's because he's going to need a lot of work to his lower body and his mechanics, and really in his really all his throwing mechanics. If you want to get that quick game and that intermediate going in his arsenal, that's going to take some time to develop. You got to break a lot of bad habits that he's built. So I think it would be a disaster if you started him immediately. But as a long term project, or even as a 2-year project, I think that there's really something there.
All right, this will be my last question on Jalen Milroe. Then we'll move on to the next one. Do you think he should have came back for another year of college?
No, I don't think it would help them.
Okay.
Because we know that he's got the deep ball ability. We know he's probably the best athlete in this position group in this class, and may have been last year too. What he really needs is some time to sit and learn and adjust to that speed. And you're not going to get that anywhere else in college football. And I think he probably could have hit the portal. I think that there would have been a lot of interested suitors, but would anybody have really, you've always got that thing up there. Are they going to create the right offense? Are they going to set you up for success? Obviously you still have that question in the NFL, but at least in the NFL, you've got the opportunity potentially as a first round pick. I think Milroe probably does go first round toward the back end of it. But with first round money, that's not quite what NIL is matched up to yet.
On the national team, Dylan Gabriel, left-handed. A lot of people look undersized. I mean, we know his college career: Central Florida, Oklahoma, and then Oregon. And I liked how he honored all three with his helmet. That was pretty cool. He did that. What's your read on him? Obviously, this is a guy who was very successful pretty much everywhere he played at. Put up the big numbers. Was a Heisman, candidate there at Oregon this past year. Got on to a championship. went into playoff. Of course, didn't work out for them when they played Ohio State there in the quarterfinals. But where is he at as a prospect? Where are you seeing him at?
I'm kind of seeing him more as a late round guy, a developmental 3, which is bad because he's a 6-year senior. So there's not a lot of time left to develop. When you deal with smaller quarterbacks like that, you kind of have to have some sort of trait that stands out. When you look at Drew Brees was one of those undersized quarterbacks when he came out of Purdue, falls to the second round despite the numbers and the production that he put up and the tape that he put up at Purdue. He had the cannon of an arm. He could throw the ball. Dylan Gabriel doesn't have that kind of an arm. And then when you look at, Kyler Murray is in the league doing it right now. Bryce Young, those are guys that can move and they can move really well. Bryce is a better improviser. Kyler's a pure athlete. Dylan doesn't really have that either. So Dylan's kind of lacking that trait that puts him up over the top. I guess you could say accuracy, but if you don't have the arm to drive it into some tight windows, sometimes that doesn't help you. So I think he's probably a late round guy. I've got a 7th to high priority free agent on him, but I think that he probably will get drafted.
Yeah, he seems like he's a quarterback. He does a lot of things well, but he doesn't do anything great.
Yeah, that's it. And I remember trashing on him last year before the when he was at Oklahoma before the Texas game. He can't hit the deep ball and blah blah. He's 10 yards short every time, and then he goes up to Texas and hits every freaking deep ball in that game. And you're just like, are we ever going to see that again? And we never did. So that's the consistency. So you see the flashes, and I think the flashes probably what will get him drafted.
Oh, and also I think just a cool story. And look, I'm a fan of all the other leagues, the UFL, CFL. I like watching all of them. And Taylor Elgersma, out of Canada, obviously a big difference in what he's used to. The smaller field, only not having 12, not having everybody running toward the line of scrimmage at one time. All the different things. He had some moments in the game on Saturday. Had a big pass play in 57 yards. I think it was 4-7 overall. But how did you see with him just kind of like that transition from the Canadian game to the American game?
Yeah, he's struggling with that transition, and that's what happened in practice most of the week. And you mentioned the running starts. I think that's the biggest aspect here in play is they do get running starts in Canada. They don't have to be, online and can't be moving forward. It's not like that in the Canadian league, but the running starts throws off your timing, especially into the intermediate areas. And that's where you really saw him struggle all week. And the other thing you got to remember too is he's only been exposed to American football for 3 weeks. That was his 3rd week playing it. He played it at the Tropical Bowl, and then he did the College Gridiron Showcase. So he's the first player from both of those games to ever make it to the Senior Bowl. But regardless, you just kind of you saw that he was struggling with the timing, with getting the ball to the right spots, but he does have an NFL level arm. There's no doubt about that. You saw him kind of fight in the pocket a little bit in the game. You saw him kind of fight through, I think his very first snap, he got walloped and he fought through it and still got the ball out. Incomplete, but regardless, he didn't get sacked. He definitely there's some stuff to work with there, but he would be a long-term project that you're going to kind of stash away on the practice squad and see if he develops nicely.
Yeah, and it's still a cool thing, like you said, first Canadian quarterback to play in the game, and just that learning curve is going to be, and defensive linemen are yard off the line of scrimmage either, so it's a little bit all the different things. It's kind of very intriguing. And look, and this is a guy really he didn't start playing football to the 10th grade, so it's not like he was playing football from a very early age, even in Canada. So he hasn't, when you look at it compared to a lot of these other guys, he hasn't been playing football that long.
No, it's a great point you bring up, and that was with talking to his coaches. I think after the first day of practice, that's what they both mentioned. Was his head coach, his offensive coordinator were there, and they both talked about, hey, he really didn't play organized football until he was really a junior. He was part of the team, but he didn't play as a sophomore. He played his junior year, so he's really only had 6 years of good football experience, which it does say a lot about where he is as a player.
Running back. I got one guy on mine because, as you know, I'm in here in the state.
I already know where you're going with that one.
Jarquez Hunter did not get a carry in the game, but he caught 3 passes for 30 yards in the game. Of course, the video's gone over the place because Alabama Auburn fans Jalen Milroe threw a pass to Jarquez Hunter. Just me as a guy, obviously I cover Auburn for last word and just seeing Jarquez as much. Of course, started playing behind Tank Bigsby and then finally had a 1,000-yard season this past year. And you can correct me anything if I'm wrong on my analysis. Just, of course, I want yours is the more important part. To me, he doesn't seem like he always reads well, but if the hole opens up and he sees it, he can be dangerous and he can make a big play. What's kind of like your read on Jarquez Hunter after seeing him this week?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. He's a gap runner. You want him. You don't want him necessarily in a heavy zone run scheme. You want him, with designed gaps to hit to run through. And I thought that the receiving ability that he showed this week was definitely a plus because that gives him a little bit more value as a player. When you catch the ball out of the backfield, that's a necessity now in the NFL. That's not an optional requirement. Otherwise, it's very difficult for you to find a role unless you're just Derek freaking Henry and you can just run over people at 6'3", 260 pounds. And Jarquez doesn't have that, so now he has to catch the ball. And he did that pretty well all week. And I thought he had a good week. Running back is not one of those positions that you can necessarily explode from out of an all-star game just because of the type of exposure that it gives you. A lot of the running ability that you have shows in the game in 11 on 11. But I thought overall he had a good week and what he could do and what he could show. And receiving was one of the things that he needed to be able to do.
Yeah, I know at Auburn too. He liked to hurdle people. You need to calm that down a little bit at the next level. Yeah, he do it, man. It was cool though. I actually was at the game when he went over 1,000 yards, and that's always been the thing. With as good as he was at Auburn, he just hadn't done that yet.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing was at the game, they showed up there on the jumbotron when they announced that he went over 1,000. The smile on his face when the Auburn fans were just cheering him on. It was just and the Auburn fans are going to be wanting to be obviously cheering him on, hoping for success at the next level. Tight end, of course, Mason Taylor, LSU. I feel like this is a guy that got overlooked in college because LSU was always so loaded at wide receiver. You almost forget about him at tight end. And then Elijah Arroyo, I saw from Miami that he, especially early on in the week, I saw a lot of people posting that he really did well for himself. He really was showing out practice. Kind of merging those two together, but what was your takeaways?
Yeah, Arroyo was probably the best pure receiver there at the tight end position. Very explosive guy, really good open field speed, can play out of the slot, could probably fit into a Dalton Kincaid role at the next level. But his medicals are going to be huge, man, because this is the first year that he played healthy. The first 2 years prior to that, season-ending injuries both years. So as long as his medicals are clear, he's put himself in a very good position with the year that he's had and then the Senior Bowl performance. And then, yeah, Mason Taylor, that's a guy, he doesn't like you to talk about it, but his dad's Jason Taylor, so he's been around football for a long time. And he is a talented dude. I thought he showed a better blocking capability. It looked like he'd worked on that this week, going into this week, the Senior Bowl. So that was kind of one of the questions that he needed to answer. But as a receiver, very reliable hands, very, very consistent in the underneath and intermediate game. And then he can stretch the field down the seams as well.
So, final question. Of course, this is Super Bowl week. The Eagles and the Chiefs. We saw this matchup 2 years ago. I think I told somebody, yeah, but the big difference is there was not Saquon Barkley on the Eagles side that first time around. But Chiefs played in close games. You don't want to be in a close game with them because they just don't lose them. But it just feels like the Eagles offensively, they're just clicking on like a different level right now. And Jalen Hurts, really, when you look at the playoffs, he hasn't had a great game yet. I mean, it's been Saquon. I mean, Jalen Hurts has been good. I'm not wanting anybody to think I'm saying he hasn't been good. He has been good. He's done what they've needed him to do in the games. How do you see this one go? And I think America outside of Kansas City, they're rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. Very, very hard in this game. I think that is fair to say. What's your take on the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Man, I think going into after watching the Chiefs win the Bills, it was like, man, I hope we go kick their butts. Like I wanted to see it so bad, but I think with the reports starting to actually come out and circulate, that Kellen Moore is pretty much a done deal to New Orleans. I can confirm that it's been done since Tuesday. This is you don't typically see the coordinators leaving a team prior to the Super Bowl. Obviously, he's still going to coach, but when they accept that job, um, their teams don't necessarily come out and play very well. So the Eagles have relied on Saquon all year. I think that's going to continue. I think Saquon's got an opportunity to run all over this defense. Um, I just find it very difficult and hard to believe that they're going to have enough ammo at the end of the game with Kellen, knowing he's in New Orleans, he's in the place he's about to take the job, thinking about the presser Monday morning. Um, I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to do it. I think it's going to be a three-peat for the Chiefs.
Well, as a Packer fan, as they are the last franchise to win 3 straight NFL titles, I've had to explain that difference for people that the Super Bowl has not always been around. So I will be rooting for the Eagles for that reason. I'll just throw it at this: if the Eagles win, they won. Why?
Saquon. It'll be Saquon,
agree.
and it'll be Vic Fangio dialing up just enough on the defensive side to confuse Patrick Mahomes. And I think there's some talent that's obviously there. We've seen Nolan Smith emerge in the playoffs, especially. He's been absolutely extraordinary as a pass rusher, as a speed rusher off the edge. And Jalen Carter's had a really good playoff run too. So it's that defensive line that won the Eagles the Super Bowl the last time they won. They definitely have a shot to do it as long as the offense can put up just enough points. I think you really need to hold a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter and try to play ball conservative to really pull this one out. But that's going to be very, very difficult, as we know that Chiefs defense is not a joke either.
It's not. So it'll be a good game. But again, I think most of the country will be rooting for the Eagles on Sunday. And John, this is fun. Always fun having you on, talk about all things NFL draft and football in general. If the listener viewers want to check you out online, where can they find you?
Yeah, on X is probably the best place to keep up with me. That's at Draft Vogel. Got my website, draftvogel.com, and you can follow the Sick Podcast of Draft Vogel on wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Everybody, go check it out. Go check out his draft guide as well. Again, posted in the description on the podcast and on YouTube. And John, again, appreciate the time, and I look forward when we get to do this again.
Of course. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Once again, thanks to John for coming on the pod. Always enjoy talking to him about all things NFL draft. We'll try to get John on when we get closer to the NFL draft and that good stuff. So, real quickly, because we're at 28 minutes now. I'm trying not to do a 50-minute podcast. This one, like we did last week, try to keep things released between 35 and 40 minutes. So, over the weekend, we had some coaching changes. They're very notable. Ryan Grubb is going to Alabama to be the new offensive coordinator, replacing Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard, who were the co-offensive coordinators for Alabama last year. Now, both those guys will stay on staff. Do not know what their role will be, but they are both staying on staff. He will be the offensive coordinator. Ryan Grubb, he was with the Seahawks in 2024. Actually, originally he was going to be Alabama's offensive coordinator when Kalen DeBoer got hired, but then went and took the Seahawks job. He has been with DeBoer a lot. They have worked together many, many times at different spots. Recently with the Washington Huskies, he was offensive coordinator in 22 and 23. Of course, with Washington making it to the national championship game in the 23 season. They also worked together at Fresno State from 20 to 21. Washington was number 2 in the country in 23 passing course. That was with Michael Penix. Which the big thing will be now with this hire, obviously you're trying to find out who's going to replace Jalen Milroe, who we just discussed there with John Vogel. Scott Cochran, Alabama and Georgia fans, obviously familiar with this name. He's been hired to be the head coach at Division II West Alabama. Former Alabama Georgia assistant. 2007-19 worked with Nick Saban as Alabama strength and conditioning coach. He has been part of 6 national titles there. Alabama with 4 in LSU 2. 20 to 23, he was the Georgia special teams coordinator. And of course, in 21-22, they won national championships there at Georgia as well. He's been very vocal about a painkiller addiction. Did go to rehab, so we'll see how he does as head coach. This is a big step up for him. He does well. That could open up some opportunities to kind of get back into big time college football and see how he can do there. But one, just great getting through. I hope he's well. That's the most important part. But we'll see how he does as a head coach. He's a very wired individual, so I don't know how that plays as a head coach, but we'll see how that goes. Chip Kelly leaving Ohio State to be the new offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders will be joining Pete Carroll there. Ohio State, of course, won the national title, averaged 35.7 points per game. So after 1 year, he's leaving, head to the NFL. Of course, he has stints as a head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. Had a winning record there, just didn't work. And then he had a very bad record 1 year with the 49ers, going 2-14. Of course, all the time there with UCLA, Oregon. He did go up against Pete Carroll once when they both were in the Pac-12, and now he will be his offensive coordinator. So we'll see what they do there. The Raiders are a team that they do need a quarterback. That is very clear there. I don't know their position at 6 if they will there be one. Because, like I said, Tom John, it's not a really good quarterback class. I mean, pretty much after Cam Warren, Shadur Sanders, I mean, that's pretty much it. Real quick at some college basketball related news. Florida State head coach, longtime head coach, Leonard Hamilton announced his resignation effective after the season. Florida State currently is 13-9 overall, 4-7 in the ACC. He is the winningest head coach in Florida State basketball history, with his Florida State record being 434 and 290, 10th all-time NCAA in wins, 16 postseason berths for Florida State when him being there as head coach, and he's had 12 20-win seasons. In 2012, the Florida State Seminoles won the ACC tournament championship, and then 2019-20 season, they won their first ever ACC regular season championship. And the polls had come out on Monday. Auburn remains number 1, unanimous there. Duke's number 2. Just looking around other SEC teams, Alabama's 3. Got a matchup with Auburn coming up in a few weeks. Tennessee is 4. 6 is Florida. Now, Auburn does play Oklahoma on Tuesday night, and then they will turn around and play at Florida on Saturday. So, very big game there between those two. A&M is at 10. Kentucky's at 14 after that upset loss to Arkansas on Saturday, where Calipari returned to Rupp. Of course, Missouri 15, Mississippi State 22, and Ole Miss is 25. And then, look, I don't talk a lot about the NBA here. I really don't. I mean, we're mostly a football show. I'll jump into college basketball sometimes. But you got to talk about, I mean, the biggest story in sports over the weekend is Luka being traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks got Anthony Davis, Max Christie, a 2029 first-round pick. Lakers get Luka, Maxi Kleber, and then Markieff Morris. Apparently, no other teams were aware that Luka was available. Dallas called them. See reports maybe Dallas not happy with Luka's conditioning, and they just want to get out of the Luka business. Their general manager said, "You win defense championships. Of course, Luka's not great on defense." So, and obviously, with the Lakers, if you can get Luka as one of the top 5, at worst, I think top 5 player, probably a top 3 player when he's really on his game. He's been hurt a little bit this year. But if you're Lakers, you make the trade. Anthony Davis has been good for them. They won a championship with him, but you weren't winning a title this year with this roster the way it is. You're not winning one now. This is a move for the future. Luka's 25. So now the Los Angeles Lakers have their future post LeBron. So it's going to be interesting how the Lakers manage this team. They do not have any bigs. That's going to be a deal. We'll see what they do. But for Dallas, they should be good here. Move forward, see what their future is. But the Lakers had the more promising future with Luka, just being 25. Like I said, LeBron's 40. You now have your superstar, your star for the next 10 years. Again, don't talk about the NBA a lot, but I want to get out there because it was the biggest story in sports over the weekend. I'm not going to do my Super Bowl prediction here. I may do a short pod later in the week, or we may just recap some SEC basketball games or any news that happens in college football and all that good stuff. Later on in the week, may do a solo show, and I'll get my Super Bowl prediction on that one. Again, thanks to John Vogel for coming on the show. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast available, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also over at Daily News. Please check out Wiregrass Daily News at the website and over on the Facebook page. You can watch the show over on YouTube at the Philip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. And if you want to email me, sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Again, hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Maybe Friday when the Super Bowl prediction pod drops should be good. But anyways, until next time, bye-bye.